For the last 2 or even 3 centuries, European travelers have recorded all sorts of wild adventures, strange stories, and even supernatural phenomena across their visits all over the world. Piecing these memories together and extracting the juicy bits from them is a very fun task, and today I have brought for you an incredible story of the 2 psychic, electromagnetic, crazy goth girls from Turkey's city of Izmir, then known as Smyrna, in 1839. Now, before beginning, combing through all these books, records, old memoirs really takes up a bit of my time, and you would appreciate that on my channel, a lot of the things I share with you are 100% original research. That is to say, they're first degree research. The things I speak about, no other YouTuber usually finds and talks about them. So that's also something to think about. And I'm not gonna drag it out too much, but basically, here's the deal, ladies and gents. I need your support to keep doing this channel. If you enjoy the stories, if you enjoy what I've been giving you so selflessly, maybe you could think about contributing to me on patreon.com, buy me a coffee, or maybe grab some of my merch. And when you contribute to my channel, you always get something back. In fact, just this week I've been uploading downloadable versions of the short audio stories that have been featuring on this channel for the past month onto my Patreon page. If you subscribe to me on Patreon and go there, you can download these podcasts and listen to them wherever you want. Just think about it. What if you're on the car, or you got it saved on your phone, or you got it saved on your computer while you're working? Anywhere. So please consider supporting Daddy Kozeman. And without much further ado, here we go with this incredible and extraordinary story recorded by Hermann von Pückler-Muskau. He was a member of the German nobility who lived between 1785 and 1871. He was a traveler, an author, an artist, and a notable German contributor to the art of landscape gardening. Of course, he was a nobleman, so he had the free money and basically the means to travel all over the world and write these books and publish them. Unlike him, I am not a member of any nobility, so once again, your support on Patreon and beyond really matters. So, Hermann von Pückler-Muskau. He also traveled to the city of Izmir, then known as Smyrna, and stayed with a number of notable people of the town and spent time with other Europeans in Izmir when he visited there. At the time of recording, Izmir is one of the most secular and westernized cities of all of Turkey. It has its own fair share of problems, but which city doesn't? In the past, especially when Hermann von Pückler-Muskau visited it, Izmir was, then known as Smyrna, was a mostly non-Muslim city inhabited by lots of the Greeks who then lived in the Ottoman Empire, as well as a sizable contingent of quote-unquote Levantines. Now, these were Catholic citizens of the Ottoman Empire of Italian or French extraction, and together with actual citizens of France or other Western countries, they basically helped Western commerce get a stranglehold on the Ottoman Empire, and they were living so well off that for centuries they had dynastic families living around Izmir. Actually, to this day, some of the wealthiest families in Turkey are members of these Levantine dynasties. But let us get back to the story at hand. When Hermann von Pückler-Muskau visits Izmir, it's a long memoir detailing a number of other things, and he's got a lot of other adventures or misadventures in it. He hires an Italian translator to take him around town, and the translator promptly steals all of his money and fucking disappears. He then witnesses the excavation of a certain ancient tomb. They think it was the tomb of Tantalos, but then the British take over the dig, and that's the end of that story. He joins a lot of Orthodox celebrations, including the Day of the Resurrection, and he notes all the Ottoman Greeks enjoy shooting in the air, even in churchyards and even within churches. They really enjoy discharging their pistols, so these are like nice, interesting cultural details. After these adventures, Hermann von Pückler-Muskau goes back to the Izmir city proper. So this is a city that's by the sea, and it's got certain different districts. Now, as the Ottoman Empire was a multi-ethnic conglomerate empire, each nation within the empire had a different quarter. And of course, being a foreign visitor, Hermann von Pückler-Muskau would be the most at home in the quote-unquote French quarter of the city. So he goes back to the part of the city that's home to all the European consulates, where all the Levantines and other Europeans live, and he begins to attend certain gatherings of high society, and this is where the interesting paranormal visit takes place. I am now just going to read from the book this memoir is conveyed in. It's a book called Hacilar, Seyyahlar, Misyonerler ve İzmir by İlhan Pınar. It's a Turkish book of compiled, translated memoirs from a lot of historic people. So it's like one of those nice source books that are really fun to browse through. And its title translates into Pilgrims, Travelers, Missionaries, and İzmir. And the author is İlhan Pınar. The source is in the video description. So let us go. Today I met up with Baron Bandeira and certain other persons of interest to visit two wonderful young girls that were the talk of all of Smyrna. It was said that these two young girls emanated strange electromagnetic forces. And being men of science, we wanted to observe this situation with our two eyes. So right off the bat, I'm thinking of something like a weird crossover between the twins in The Shining and Wednesday Addams. It is hinted that these girls are like young, not so young, they're teenagers or maybe even older. So these people are like, wow, it's talk of polite society. Let's go check these girls out. And they emanate electromagnetic powers. Interesting phrase. Unfortunately, it was a clear day with a freezing cold, and it was said that such weather reduced the potency of the girls' electromagnetic powers. Now, it's very interesting at this junction that he speaks about these powers as being electromagnetic in nature. This memoir was written in the 1840s, so it was a time when not everything about physics was clearly understood. You could even say that, is it even understood now? But yeah, the dominion of uncertainty was far larger and grander. And in that context, it's interesting to see Hermann von Pückler-Muskau refer to these girls' powers as being electromagnetic in nature, rather than spiritual or parapsychological or something like that. Because, as we are about to see, these bad girls have a poltergeist-like power at their disposal. I'm really picturing about... So, this is a side note, but there's an interesting Twitter artist at the time of recording, 2024. He or she goes by the name Mossa Cannibalis, and just from these descriptions alone, the girls really sound like one of those Mossa Cannibalis illustrations. Mossa Cannibalis. Go look it up. But anyways, back to the electromagnetic girl. Okay, it was said that the cold reduced their powers and hot weather increased them. Despite this, what we saw was beyond our wildest expectations. We went to their house and were let into a room. Both girls seemed to be around 18-20 years of age. When they saw us, their behavior was very refined and graceful. Their appearance was delectable, if not outright beautiful. Okay, this is definitely up my alley and contrary to what Pückler-Muskau says, yeah, a little bit of weirdness makes beauty, mere beauty, into pure perfection. And I'm just having a good time reading this. Let's leave it at that. Okay, and the seance started. The girls were made to sit on a table with a muslin covering, and as the seance started, the table started to emanate sounds of a deep breathing from below it. So the table is going as these two girls, two weird but hot but quirky and also nice but not perfect girls are sitting on it. The table, oh my god, the table is going Okay, I'm really sorry, but it's really difficult to not read any innuendo into this description. Okay, the two hot twins probably are sitting on a table, and the table is acquiring maybe perverse characteristics and just groaning. Okay, then the groanings were joined by the sounds of creaking wood, sometimes resembling the gnawings of a rodent, and sometimes they sounded like the scraping of fingernails. Oh my god, girls. I told you not to sit on that table again. You're leading the table on. God damn, that poor thing. And also scratching with nails and fucking shit. You can't make this thing up, and this is just like all the funny jokes aside, this is the joy of first degree research, like going to the original source and noticing things that people haven't noticed before. This is just pure joy for me. So let's see what happens. So reading on from Hermann von Pückler-Muskau's account. When I tell that these sounds resemble the sounds of nails or rodents or groaning, I must stress again that they resembled them, because the sounds were clearly not the same as the sounds I used to describe them. In another sense, they were indescribable. I can only use metaphors to relate them to you, and you must have been there to experience them yourself. Oh my god. They sounded more like phantasmal dream sounds emanating in the silence of night. Oh my god. Well, I'm just saying, I guess that these girls were like a lot more charismatic than he describes, because I don't know. Following the groanings and the breathing sounds and the scraping, something far more extraordinary took place. Oh my god. The table began to move sideways, parallel to the wall it was leaning against. Oh my god, so the table is like... Fucking table's moving all over the place! And we noticed that the movement of the table was concurrent with the motions of the girls' hands. As the girls lifted their hands, the table started moving with increasing intensity, and when the girls rotated their palms downwards, the table started moving jerkily, erratically, and suddenly, as if it was being showed by force. Oh my god. So the girls are going tee-hee and moving their hands, and the table just can't take it anymore. This extraordinary electromagnetic energy seemed to be focused more intensely in the hands of the younger girl. And as the girls sat facing each other on the table and started moving their hands, the table would actually start rocking around like a horse. But yeah, I mean, look, if two hot 20-year-old Wednesday Addams type Izmir girls sat on my back and started moving their hands up and down, I would be like groaning and scraping and I don't know, bucking like a bronco too. Are you sure this is electromagnetism that you're talking about? Okay, so something extraordinary happens. This table is, despite being a total simp and like a total goon, this table is also a gentleman. Because it says here that the girls then sat facing each other and faced their palms towards each other. Oh my God. And then the table was rocking so hard, almost like a mule, that it actually knocked the girls over. But fear not, because all of a sudden, as one of the girls fell off the rocking table, a chair would move in magically to catch her. Oh my freaking God. I mean, what do we even make of this? It's certainly, like, in hindsight, it's certainly a performance. And look, Hermann von Pückler-Muskau was an imaginative guy, okay? He was also an artist, so I don't think it's totally outside the realm of possibility that this was like a parlor trick invented by the girl's family to trick credulous foreigners. And then, of course, Hermann von Pückler-Muskau swallowed it hook, line and sinker, because, you know, when you see something as outlandish as this, you know, with like beautiful women involved too, you know, you want to believe, you know, I want to believe, as the X-File poster goes. Okay, so yeah, this like table and chair are just like, they can't take it anymore, you know, and the girls are like, tee, what if I put my hand here? And the table is like, and then he drops and the chair comes over. Oh, my lady, don't be afraid. I got you, girl. I got you. Don't you just fall. I got you, you know. Anyways, then Hermann von Pückler-Muskau continues his account. Upon witnessing this spectacle, we made the following evaluations. We had the experiment repeated without the muslin cover on the table. So they went for round 2. Look, I think the tablecloth wasn't there to like obscure anything, but maybe it was to keep the table clean, you know, for what happened afterwards. Just saying. But anyways, they removed the muslin sheet on the table and the results were the same. The table and chair kept moving. He then says, as the ambient light in the room decreased, the girl's power seemed to increase. We had the curtains drawn shut and had the experiment repeated for the 3rd round. We could observe things, but it was just dark enough for things to be indistinct. And when this happened, the experiment was repeated and the table was now moving and the sounds were now being heard at even higher intensity. We also noticed that the electromagnetic effects were lessened as people approached the girls, probably because they don't want you to see the fucking trick they're playing on you. And if a third party laid his hand on the table or the girls, the movement ceased abruptly. Yeah, probably because they're playing a parlor trick on you. We also noticed that if somebody directed a metal knife towards the table or the girls, the electromagnetic effects also stopped. Now, this last bit is really interesting because all the other things, they're like a textbook case of like credulous minds and fakery, you know? Oh, it gets stronger when it's darker and, you know, you don't want anybody touching the girls or the table because I'm almost certain that there's somebody with like hidden ropes or some mechanism below the floorboards that's just operating this shit. But the knife thing is interesting. Now, you might remember this from other podcasts on this channel that there are certain legends in Turkey where if you are being attacked by supernatural beings, you need to have an iron nail or an iron knife on you, and this completely negates the evil effects of these supernatural forces. As a side note, by the way, I myself, like a couple of years ago, I was suffering from really bad nightmares. And I'm like a well-grounded guy, you know, I'm a skeptic, but, you know, I was reading such accounts and I said, okay, why the heck not? So I had a piece of metal I took from the railings of a cemetery, and like the rails on the cemetery were over 80 years old. And part of it was just working loose, so I snapped it and I took it home with me. And I put it next to my bedside basically, and I slept with that. In fact, when the nightmares were really tough, I clutched the thing and slept that way. And when that happened, they stopped. I don't know what to make of it, but no nightmares. If you had similar effects, please let me know in the comments. Maybe there's something psychological, maybe a unknown placebo effect in the mix. But it is really interesting to note this detail about a metal knife being pointed towards these girls and the table, and apparently when that happens, the quote-unquote electromagnetic comm force does not operate anymore. How interesting. And also, as I just told, it's even more interesting to consider all these ancient Turkish legends, ancient Anatolian legends, where iron makes the spirits go away, and the same thing seems to be happening here. I don't know. As we observed the experiment and repeated it numerous times, we noticed that the electromagnetic force was heightened greatly when the girls were left alone to act naturally and when they had conversations with an observer. So this is interesting. If the girls are just tee-hee, just hanging around or just chatting with some person, when they're using their words, the table gets even more steamy and oh my god. It's a pity they didn't have UV lights back then, I wonder what would be splattering the floor and everywhere. Just like, okay. We also noticed something extraordinary, as if everything until now hasn't been extraordinary enough. One of the girls was just thirsty and she asked for a glass of lemonade. She drank the lemonade thirstily and restored herself. As this was happening, look, I'm not kidding here, I'm translating verbatim as I read. As this was happening, the table started moving slowly and languorously, as if experiencing the same feelings and emotions. Oh my god! This table is really in deep with these girls. So imagine the girl's like, I'm just a little thirsty for some lemonade. I bet she drank that with a straw too. And then as she's drinking, the table is going and just getting like and restoring itself, because the sensation of this Wednesday Addams type hot girl slurping lemonade coolly on his back is just too much for our table friend to bear. Okay. It says, I don't know if this is an artifact of translation, but it says that the table seemed to be experiencing the same emotion as the girl. And after the girl sated her thirst, the table just stood by and stood idle. The table had a kind of post-nut moment of clarity. I don't know. I am convinced, says Hermann von Pückler-Muskau, that what we saw in that room was simply not explainable through electricity and magnetism alone. You got that right, brother. Oh, he then goes on and saying, the phenomena we saw needs the theory of revolutionary magnetism to understand. I don't know what this is. Probably an error of translation. Remember, I'm reading from a actually bad translation into Turkish from the German original, so I need to consult the original text. But whatever this revolutionary magnetism is, I want some of that. Yep, I want me some of that. As a side note, in certain cases, the sounds and the motion of the furniture were not concurrent. Sometimes, as in thunder and lightning, the sound preceded the movement and then the movement came on later like a soft, subtle explosion. I'm not even gonna make any jokes at this point, but yeah, if the movement and the sounds are out of sync, I guess there's an elaborate forgery at play here. Okay, me and a ship's doctor who were in the audience examined the girls ourselves. Okay. They told us that they felt no fatigue after such a show. But the younger girl, so okay, they're not twins. The younger girl had a racing pulse. The hand which she laid on the table, contrarily, had a very slow pulse. The two of us observed this phenomenon independently, so it's kind of alluded that, the hand she touches the table with maybe loses some vital force, so maybe that's why it's slower. I think that's the kind of angle they're going for it there. But then the older sister had a normal and calm pulse on both hands. Yeah, touching a goon table ghost kind of does that to people, but if it's not your first rodeo, maybe you get used to it. I don't know, everybody. I don't know. We also interviewed the girl's mother, and she related to us how just a day before we arrived in Smyrna, during a moment when the girls were playing among themselves and just having fun together, just a few days ago, they dreamt up this game to lock themselves in a closed room and just play. So it's like 5 minutes in the closet. The mother heard such loud noises that she thought it was a gun going off at first, and then the electromagnetic force of the girls threw the door open with such strength that the lock was actually smashed and broken, and also a part of the door was just snapped off. And truly, we looked at the door of the house and it really did have repairs on a certain section. So yeah, I think looking back skeptically, obviously the girl's mom is in on this thing and she's just adding juicy details to the story and showing them a broken lock or a repaired door as quote unquote proof. The next morning, we visited them again and we asked these eager and well-meaning girls to perform for us privately. They earnestly accepted our proposal. Oh my God. In this second round, myself and Mr. Chabert stayed with the girls in a closed room. Other members of our party went to the next room, where they probably sat on the cock chairs. Look, I'm just gonna read it straight because I can make a billion jokes here, but they're just gonna take away from the mystery and the hilarity of the story. So I'll let the details speak for themselves, okay? So myself and Mr. Chabert were locked in a dark room with these girls, and 4 or 5 other peoples were in another room, okay? It slowly began to get dark, and myself and Mr. Chabert lowered the gas lamps in the room to such a degree that it was possible to perceive the silhouettes of objects, but nobody could see details, and the force of the girls would be amplified. That's what you keep telling yourself, is it, huh? Yeah, come on. We told the girls to use their powers on the door that separated the chamber we were in with the chamber that other members of our group were resting in. So this is apparently like a connecting hotel room kind of thing, and he's telling to the girls use the force on the door. And soon enough we started hearing moaning and groaning noises from the door, just going far louder than the noises we had heard from the table in the previous night. They were so intense that they sounded like thunder, and even the skeptical member of our party, who was the surgeon of a naval ship, was convinced that this was no human acting. So they were slamming against the walls and doors there. Oh my God. Okay. This really sounds like a combined prostitution / escape house gig, and I think everybody is in on this. After the performance, I kicked the door with my own feet, hitting as hard as I could to confirm the difference of the sounds. Everybody noticed that the electric hits caused by the girls' electromagnetic power sounded far more different and far more intense than a mere human kick. We tried repeatedly again and again, but the girls were unable to smash the door this time. If they wanted to play a kind of forgery, I think they could have smashed the door and convinced us thoroughly, but I think the fact that they did not smash the door was proof that a real force was at work there that very night. Oh, you keep telling yourself that. It looks like you and Mr. Chabert, had a merry old time kicking the doors down, so to speak. And anyways, I'll leave it at that, I don't want to get too sleazy with this retelling. And then the account of Hermann von Pückler-Muskau concludes saying that what I have just told you are but mere observations of a humble observer. If certain giants of science of Europe, such as von Humboldt and Arago, were able to study this phenomenon in further detail, I am sure that much more light could be shed on the matter. So there everybody, that's Hermann von Pückler-Muskau's wild night in Smyrna with these two phenomenal electromagnetic girls. This was just one of the many such incidents in such obscure memoirs. Certainly, Hermann von Pückler-Muskau himself was a great eccentric. He wasn't a mere observer like the way he wrote back there. He was a member of the Prussian nobility, he was an artist and one of Europe's first great travel writers, so he wasn't some sort of Lex Friedman, like I am just a human observing the world kind of. Like, he had flair and he knew it. In fact, he was kind of antinomian too, and he wanted to be cremated when he died, but the religious authorities did not allow him. So he actually kind of designed a chemical funeral for himself, I kid you not. In his will, Hermann von Pückler-Muskau had direct orders to first have his heart molten in sulfuric acid, and then the rest of his body would be treated with caustic potash and caustic lime and caustic soda, all sorts of decay causing chemicals. And then to top it all off, he ordered them to bury his body in a kind of little pyramid he made inside a lake near his estate. Remember, this guy was also a pioneer of landscape design. So on the whole, a completely interesting and eccentric individual relating to us a really wild and crazy story from what is now present-day Izmir. I hope you enjoyed this story, everybody. What do you think? Do you think this was a forgery, or were the girls really electric, so to speak? What was the poor table doing, Oh God. Anyways, look, if you know about certain similar incidents, either in the memoirs or books you read, or maybe in your own life, just let me know. And certainly that little detail about iron causing a cessation of paranormal activity is also really interesting. As always, I hope you had a great time and I love you all. This has been CM Kozeman. Goodbye.